Hey guys, this is Tyler with Diesel, and today we're going to show you everything you need to know about replacing your fuel filter on your JL Wrangler EcoDiesel. Let's check it out. Hey guys, before we get started today, I just want to take a moment to remind you to hit the subscribe button below. That way you won't miss a moment of diesel, including critical maintenance intervals like this. So subscribe today to start learning about how to work on your EcoDiesel. Alright guys, so it might come as a surprise to some of you that aren't familiar with diesels, but diesels are actually very particular about the fuel system and the fuel that is injected into the cylinder. Because of the fuel injectors, they're very high precision components, so if you have water, contaminants, things like that in your fuel system, it's going to mess with it. So in modern diesels, what we have is we have fuel systems, fuel conditioning modules, things like that. And those often include a very large fuel filter just to deal with day in and day out life owning a diesel and make sure that the end user doesn't see any problems through day-to-day operation, right? So that's good news. The only thing is, we have to maintain those systems from time to time, but never fear, it's a super easy job on this to change the fuel filter, and that's really the only thing you're going to have to do. Take a step back. We did a video a while ago. I'll put a link up here at the top. Just kind of a couple tips about maintaining your fuel system, just to make sure you're giving it the best chance for success kind of deal. But today what we're going to do is we're going to replace this fuel filter. So Mopar says, or Jeep says, I think 30,000 miles is the interval. We're at about just over 20,000 now, but to be honest with you, I want to get out ahead of this because number one, it's never bad to do maintenance like this a little early, but number two, I want to make a video on it before a lot of you guys are coming up on needing to change your fuel filter, right? So the part number for this is right there. But you don't need to worry about reading that right now. I will put a link to this down in the description of the video. It's actually made for the heavy-duty Rams 6.7 liter. I made a mistake. Don't make that mistake of buying the two-filter kit for the Grand Cherokee EcoDiesel 2014 and 2018. That is not the same as this. I think the new Ecodiesel Ram has the same filter as this too. They're trying to kind of streamline, which would make sense, right? So all you're going to need for this job is a couple basic tools. 10mm socket. And then you're going to need kind of a big boy. And I would recommend a 6-point. I only have a 12-point. 1 1/8 socket. A 28mm might do it too, but I don't have that. I have a 12-point. That'll be fine, but it's a 6-point, plastic nut kind of to get the fuel bowl loose down there. So make sure you don't strip that guy out. And that's really all you need. I've got a bucket to drain some fluids in because we're probably going to make a mess. And some rags. You might want to wear a glove because diesel is like the perfume that you can't ever get off your fingers, but I don't have a glove handy, so you have to deal with it. So, all right, let's hop under the Jeep, and we'll take this thing off and show you what's going on. All right, guys, so if you hop down, it's on the driver's side of your vehicle, maybe about midway or so between the tires. So if you hop down underneath, you will see what I'm talking about. So right here is your, I believe it's going to be some sort of fuel conditioning module. I think it's got your pump and stuff in it, but this also has your filter. And of course, because it's a Jeep, we don't want to bounce it off rocks. It's got a skid plate on it, right? So what we have to do is we have to take off 1, 2, 3 10mm bolts. Then the skid plate will drop, and then we can get to the actual fuel filter housing itself. So now this is the actual fuel filter, cap or whatever. So if you look here, you also have a little petcock, they call it, to drain your water out. I'm not going to drain it before, because I'm going to take it off anyways. But so if you ever have the water and fuel light or whatever, you just got to come under here. You don't even have to take the skid plate off. You can actually pop a hose on there. Crank this guy loose, and then the water will drain out first, and then you'll see fuel, right? So now, you can get your big 1 1/8 on there. See what I was talking about? That's a 6-point. So the 12-point will work, and it could be metric, but this will work fine. It's pretty tricky. There's always an O-ring in these things that gets dry. It's really tough to get off. But take your time, make sure you're square on it, and don't let that slip because this cap looks pretty expensive with that stuff in. So now you can get your bucket handy. Again, I said this in the oil change video. I love using buckets on Jeeps because they're high off the ground and they're super convenient and cheap. You don't need a special drain pan. So get your bucket handy. And this guy is probably going to start to leak pretty soon. There she goes. I'm going to let that drain for a second. Lovely, lovely diesel smell. Keep going, and there's your cap. And so you can see your element up here. I'm just going to give it a little persuasion to come down. And there she's loose. I'm going to let that guy drop in the bucket. Now, we can take a look at what's going on up in here. Everything looks good. I'm not going to touch inside the housing at all. Cleanliness is paramount, obviously, on something like this, so no need to mess it up. So that's where your fuel filter goes. It's kind of interesting. These two probes right here are actually your water and fuel light will come on if it senses continuity between those two, because water conducts electricity a little bit. So that's kind of cool. So that's pretty much it. Now we just got to get the new filter. I'll put a little bit of fuel on it to lube up the O-rings, and we'll slide it in. Alright, so now if you unbox your new filter, I already unbagged this one just to make sure everything was good. You get this O-ring here. This is important because this O-ring goes on your fuel filter cap, so you can drop the new one over. They swell up once they get in the diesel, so this one will go back in a lot nicer. That other one we struggled with a little bit. So you just kind of roll that guy over. And then the other important thing is just take a little bit of diesel fuel and just lube up your O-ring. Same thing like when you put an oil filter on, you put a little oil on the little oil on the filter. There's also some O-rings in here. You got one on the bottom that goes over that guy. And then you got one in there that's going to seal for your clean fuel out. There is orientation to this, as you see by those. So these two notches are going to go perpendicular with the Jeep. But it's got some nice grooves. You can find it and then see that little pop. That's when you know your O-ring is sealed up in there. So now you can grab your cap. Make sure you didn't drop anything in there. Make sure you're clean. It's probably going to start like a bear, as all big beds do. But we got her going there now. It'll spin up nice and free until you hit the O-ring. Now we'll get the ratchet out. Boy, and she locked down tight, just like that. The other thing is you want to pay attention to where this petcock is. So that way, if something happens and you need to drain your fuel, you'll be able to. See how that aligns? You have access to that through this little cutout in there. Alright guys, so now, like I said, that fuel filter really has to get primed. So what you're going to do is you're going to come in your Jeep, and you're just going to turn it on a couple times. And you hear that fuel pump running? So it'll run every time you flip the key on for a couple minutes. Just periodically like that, just to prime your system, before you start your Jeep. And then once you turn your Jeep on, it'll run. But if you try and start your Jeep right away, before priming your system, there's gonna be a ton of air in it and it's not gonna wanna start. So I'm gonna do this, you know, maybe like 5-10 times. I can hear it now. I can hear it actually pumping fuel. So I'm gonna do this a couple times and then we'll start the Jeep up and see how it actually starts. A little bit of a rough crank. I was nervous there, but honestly I probably primed the system, turned the key on and off maybe 10-15 times. A lot of people, you know, especially when they use the old canister style filters, everything's eco-friendly now. You'd actually fill that up with diesel to try and prime the system, but I'll have to look into that, or if you guys know anything, I'll leave some suggestions below, because it seems like it took a little longer to prime the system than maybe it should have, and maybe a little longer than I'm comfortable with. But if you can hear it too while it's been running, that noise that you're starting to hear fade out is your high pressure fuel pump. So if you do have air in your system, you know, it'll work its way out, but if there's some unusual noises, I mean, that's kind of the name of the game. All right, so I took it for a quick ride around the block, just listening to how much happier that high pressure fuel pump is now. The air's all out of the system now, we're back to normal. All right, guys, so that is it for this job. It's pretty simple, and to be honest with you, I think I read online a little bit. If you dig it to the dealer, they're going to charge you anywhere from $200, $300 plus dollars. And this fuel filter is, you know, maybe $30, $50. I'm really not sure. But again, you can find this fuel filter in the link down below in the video, and that'll help you make sure you get the absolute right part number for this. I just ordered this off Amazon, right? They have the best price. So that's it, guys. Again, every 20, 30, 40,000 miles. It's another one of those things with the new diesels. They're definitely going to be less tolerant to bad fuel, things like that. So replacing this a little early, you know, every other oil change or something like that, is definitely not going to hurt you. And it's a super easy job. You guys should know everything you need to know now about replacing your fuel filter. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or anything you want to say, make sure you leave it below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. Don't be afraid of this job. It's super easy. They really make them easy to maintain. They make good fuel systems for these new diesels. So the fact of the matter is, it's just like changing spark plugs on a gasoline. You got to change fuel filters on a diesel, right? But I'd rather change fuel filters than spark plugs any day. So thanks for watching, guys. Like I said, any comments, leave them below. Make sure you subscribe to Diesel. You know, there's going to be a little bit more maintenance coming up on this thing. You don't want to miss it. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time. Intervals like this are also a great time to add some water remover to your tank. Just one of those things that you stay on top of, because water can accumulate in your tank, not in your water fuel separator, right? So I like to use this ISO heat. Make sure you get something that's made specifically for diesels, but basically what this does is it just is a water remover. I'll put a link to this in the description of the video below.